introduce now our next presenter, Dr. Carmen Bugan, George Orwell Prize Fellow. She's an award-winning poet and writer who explores the expressions of historical and political upheaval in literature. She's the author of 10 books, including poetry, memoir, and criticism. And some of her work has been translated into Swedish, Polish, Italian, and Chinese. But I would like her to talk about Trista, her sixth collection of poems. She has a monograph as well, and other publications. She was a finalist of the George Orwell Prize and Dayton Literary Peace Prize. She was serialized in BBC radio. Are you here, Dr. Bugan?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Teo. La mulți ani la toată lumea, Crăciun fericit la toată lumea. This is a wonderful opportunity once again to be with the Romanian community in the diaspora, and I'm glad that everyone joined in from around the United States and around the world. What I wanted to say, just to pick up on the conversation from before, and I was also listening to the panel before our panel, is that the way I feel the experience being understood and being felt is by going back to the roots of Romanian languages and the Romanian language, the Romanian words, and the traditions. So what I've done in my poetry, and increasingly with the past two collections, I would say, is really drawing from the language, from the memories, and putting those Romanian words into the English lyric. So I think there is something about sort of cross-pollination going on in there. What I want to do is to just read a few poems. That would be a better way, I think, for me to express how I connect with the language and with this state of being in two places at once. The new book of poems is coming out in January. It's called Tristia, and I want to start with a poem called "The Night in the Church." Is written in memory of my aunt, Tanti Balasha. The congregation chose to have your wake in church. They placed your coffin on a table overfilled with flowers. Your frame, smaller on white satin, coffin like a crib, makes me think again about the time before birth, when the body is wombed house, outside memory, inside mysterious life. Icon under your crossed hands, cross, candle, as it's always been, in custom and in ceremony. Yet, unlike others, in your last day above the ground, you are lying in the center of the church. What did you say all night to the altar saints? And what were your instructions on the way to heaven? I think of you being honored as a stateswoman, and stately you were in the communist factory kitchen, commandeering a small team of cooks, workers lining up for the bowl of sour soup, worshipped you as much as their mothers. To my taste, no one has surpassed your cooking skills. No one has measured ingredients more precisely. Immeasurable in kindness, everyone you were. You loved red wine and loved singing hymns. You were the choir mistress. Last we met, you offered the plum wine. Together with the big family, we sang and laughed. We gossiped in those flowery native words. I remember you wanting me for your daughter, how I never left my mother, and how she would have never let me go, despite the hardship and the pain of those last few years in Romania. So you kept asking me to postpone this home, wait for the next and the next, till the last one was due. Come one more time before you leave this time, you asked. Today, I can't remember if I did. Today, your sister, my mother, is crying on the phone and sending pictures of you in the coffin. Your face is out of focus. A table with bread and fruit, a stand with candles that become smaller, kneeling in the sand. You come to me in that soft light around your table when Dad cried and we sang. And I want to read maybe a couple of more poems here. I wrote a prayer for Europe when the war in Ukraine started. And like every writer, I also wish that I could stop the war with a poem. A prayer for Europe. The warring language floats in the winter air at the words of one dictator. People forget preparations for Clean Monday to begin the war. Across the border, children wake up in the night to the sound of bombs. A neighborhood grocery store will turn to ruin. An old man, together with young women, will take up their guns to join the army. Old mistrust rises, poisoning words. If I could halt this madness with a call to prayer, a reminder of old kindnesses we all so easily tend to forget. Today, Europe is a woman whose body has been sliced by the birthing knife over and over. Her cesarean wound badly patched, birth after birth. Her womb crisscrossed, flesh hardened along ridges of history written in blood. Protect its life-giving wound, slice her no more. Consider the early patches of snowdrops under the wheels of the tanks. Would those who fly the bomber planes notice the change of seasons in the sky for the peace it could bring and fly back home? Will neighborly kindness revisit memory? The world lifts its hands in prayer as Europe suffers. I want to read another poem. It's called Holy Communion. And again, I'm keeping the religious theme here. This is shortly before my father died. The priest gathered us under the cross in our living room, parents seated, children kneeling. The book opened, the words of old prayers flew about like freed doves, trained to return home. We don't know if my brother opened the last bottle of wine, or if I protested Dad's dying one more time when I offered the glass of red instead of the morphine. Because for God's sake, we'll do this right. And my sister nursed Dad through the small hours, talking softly about what will happen to all of us scattered too far from home. Dad told us to plant a row of fruit trees, fix the writer's shed. It's Sunday morning. The sun rises in the autumn-burnt trees above the church. The priest alone waits for us with holy oil, holy wine, incense, prayers, and songs. My brother, my sister, and I walk through the door. We light 3 candles. Our faces are reflected in the face of Christ, glowing in the icon lit by stained glass window sunshine. The priest calls us to the altar, where we drink the tiny spoon of wine. Peace. I walk alone to the room I filled with flowers nearly 17 years ago, preparing for my wedding. The mind has a way of layering parts of our lives so that dying father, lost marriage, And those August roses reflect each other in the memory of icons I kissed this morning. My father's cold hands are in mine. Bravo, he says, when I kissed him all over his face. Bravo. I'll stay a little longer, he says. You fly home now. Grand River is covered in glowing fog in the growing morning. Maples emerge candle-like orange through dewy ribbons above the water, and I take flight through the thick cloud up towards the sun. I want to sort of end with a poem that celebrates my daughter's most recent birthday, and it's called Birthday at Sleeping Bear. What joy this is. A full, fresh cherry pie and people singing happy birthday in the morning by the lake. You bring this August to a close over the day climbing the back of Mama Bear barefoot. And you dance in azure waters 13 times, making my heart sing. At night, you and your brother lead me back to the dunes. We walk among stargazers and run, arms outstretched, over the sleeping bear, while she rests covered in the blanket of the Milky Way, her paws in water. And I know that there are other people who need to read, so I want to make enough time for the other poets, the other readers here, but just to end to say, I'm so, so grateful to be here today for so many reasons I can explain and I can't explain. So thank you.
You do explain them, and you explain them so well through your poems. And I think the selection of poems has been quite meaningful, going from those that we leave behind and the emotions that we have towards that, and those that we look to our continuation. And I am grateful to you, Dr. Bugan, for this reading. I think all needed our souls to settle down and hear these words, hear our emotions into words. Thank you so much for your reading today, and for giving us this special moment.